I want to start with a scene that I think is, well, it's almost painfully relatable. Imagine a young girl.
Okay.
She's at the dinner table, maybe the 70s or 80s, and her father, who's a brilliant guy, he just looks at her and says, completely casually,
Hmm.
you're no genius.
Oof. That is just devastating to hear as a kid.
Right. And it wasn't just a one-time thing. This was sort of a recurring theme. Her dad was obsessed with innate talent, the Einsteins of the world.
The born genius.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And he was always measuring his kids against that. And in his eyes, she didn't have that spark.
And the incredible irony, of course, is that the girl at that dinner table was Angela Duckworth,
The very same.
Yeah.
The woman who grows up to win the MacArthur Fellowship.
which everyone calls the Genius Grant.
It's the perfect comeback story.
It really is.
Yeah.
But what's so great about it isn't just the poetic justice. She didn't win that grant by proving her dad wrong about her IQ.
No,
She didn't win it for being the smartest person in the room.
she won it for proving that being the smartest person in the room is, well, it's statistically overrated.
That's it, exactly. She won it by showing that high achievement, whether you're an athlete, a scientist, whatever, it's not about that raw spark. It's about a very specific mix of passion and perseverance.
A mix that she calls grit.
Mm-hmm.
And that's really our mission for this deep dive. We're getting into Angela Duckworth's grit. And I want to be clear, this is not just some work harder pep talk.
Yeah, it's much deeper than that.
We're going to look at the actual mechanics of why super talented people often fail, this psychological equation for achievement she came up with, and why our cultural obsession with talent is actually a huge distraction.
A distraction that really costs us. I mean, we love the myth of the natural, but the data shows something very different. Potential is one thing, but what you do with it is something else entirely.
And there's really no better place to see that in action than the United States Military Academy at West Point.
This is really ground zero for her research. I mean, if you just think about what it takes to get into West Point.
The bar is incredibly high.
It's designed to filter for elite potential. You need amazing SAT scores, you have to be a varsity athlete, top grades.
Yeah.
Oh, and you need a nomination from a member of Congress.
So every single person who walks through those gates has already proven they are, the best of the best.
Right, and yet every summer they run this thing called Beast Barracks.
Beast.
It's 7 weeks of just brutal, intensive training before school even starts. It's designed to break you. And a huge number of these elite cadets, they drop out.
Which was a massive problem for the Army. They're spending a fortune on these kids, and they thought they had the perfect system to predict who would succeed. They had the whole candidate score.
Ah, yes, the whole candidate score.
Sounds impressive.
It was their holy grail. A weighted average of everything, SATs, high school rank, physical fitness, leadership appraisals, all of it. A total metric of talent.
And you'd think the cadets with the highest scores would just breeze through Beast.
That's what everyone thought. But the data was baffling. The whole candidate score was great at predicting academic grades.
So smart kids got at A's. Makes sense.
But it was basically useless at predicting who would quit during Beast. The best candidates on paper were just as likely to drop out as anyone else.
Because it measured their capacity, not their tenacity.
Exactly. So Duckworth shows up, and she gives them her grit scale. And the questions, honestly, they sound almost too simple.
Like from a magazine quiz or something?
Totally. I finish whatever I begin, setbacks don't discourage me, that kind of thing.
Okay.
But when she ran the numbers, the grit scale was the single best predictor of who survived Beast Barracks. It was better than SAT scores, better than physical fitness. And here's the kicker. Grit scores had zero relationship to that whole candidate score.
Whoa. So they're independent variables.
Completely. You can be off the charts talented and have no grit, or be moderately talented with incredible grit.
And in a pressure cooker like Beast or, I don't know, a startup or med school talent isn't the differentiator anymore because everyone's talented.
Grit becomes the deciding factor.
And she saw this pattern everywhere, right? Not just in the military.
Oh, yeah, it's universal. She looked at salespeople, specifically for vacation timeshares.
Which has to be one of the most psychologically punishing jobs imaginable. Just hourly rejection.
Constant rejection. And again, it wasn't the resume that predicted who would stick with it. It was grit. She saw it in Chicago public schools, where grit predicted graduation rates better than how much kids cared about school.
The one that always gets me is the National Spelling Bee. That just feels like a pure IQ test. You know the word or you don't.
It feels that way. And look, verbal IQ obviously matters. It sets a kind of ceiling. But Duckworth found that among the top spellers, The grittier kids consistently outperformed the kids with higher IQs.
How? I mean, how does that work?
It all came down to practice. The gritty kids just spent way more time in what she called solitary practice.
Not with their parents quizzing them.
No, sitting alone with a dictionary, memorizing Latin roots. It's tedious, boring work. The kids who are, smarter with less grit, they just didn't do as much of it. Things that always come easy to them, they weren't used to the grind.
That reminds me of this paradox she noticed back when she was a 7th grade math teacher.
Mm-hmm.
She said her quick studies, the kids who got a new concept in 5 minutes, they often weren't the ones with the best grades at the end of the year.
Right. She tells this story about a student, David Luong. He was in her remedial class. By all the standard metrics, he was not a math person.
Right.
But David was hungry. He was an active learner. If he got a question wrong, he didn't just see the red X. He had to figure out why it was wrong.
And what about the naturals?
They coasted. And when the math got hard enough that they couldn't coast anymore, they often just fell apart. David, meanwhile, he worked his way from the remedial track to the advanced track. He ended up getting a PhD in mechanical engineering
Wow.
and became a literal rocket scientist at Boeing.
It's an amazing story.
Yeah.
But it raises this really uncomfortable question. If all the data points to grit and effort, why are we as a culture still so obsessed with the natural?
Yeah, why do we secretly love the story of the genius who doesn't even have to try?
Duckworth has a name for it. The naturalness bias.
And it is a bias. I mean, we say we value hard work. There are surveys where Americans claim to value hard work 5 times more than intelligence, but our actions, they tell a different story.
That study with the professional musicians just nails this hypocrisy.
The Chiyo Jung-se study, yeah, it's brilliant. She gets these expert musicians, and she plays them 2 recordings of a pianist.
Okay.
For one clip, she says the pianist is a natural, just born with the gift. For the other, she says the pianist is a striver, someone who worked incredibly hard.
But, and this is the key, it's the exact same recording.
The exact same player, the exact same piece of music,
Yep.
but the experts consistently rated the natural as more talented, more hireable, more likely to succeed. They actually penalize the person who they thought had to work for it.
That's terrifying.
Yeah.
It means you are subconsciously screening out the very trait grit that actually predicts success.
It is. And I think Nietzsche actually figured out why we do this more than a century ago. He said something like, if we think of genius as magical, we don't have to compare ourselves and find ourselves lacking.
So it's an ego defense mechanism.
Totally. If I look at a Nobel Prize winner and say, oh, they're just a different species, they were born that way, then I'm off the hook. I can stay on my couch.
Because you weren't born a mutant.
Exactly. But if I have to admit their success is the result of thousands of hours of mundane, boring, difficult effort, well, then I have to ask myself why I'm not putting in that effort.
It makes their greatness feel accessible, which makes our own inaction feel painful.
It's so much more comfortable to believe in magic than to believe in the grind. I mean, look at Scott Barry Kaufman.
Right, the cognitive psychologist.
Yeah, who today is brilliant. But as a kid, he had auditory processing issues, scored low on IQ tests, and was put in special ed. The system basically said, this is your box, stay in it.
The metric said, no talent here.
But a teacher saw something. Scott discovered the cello and just applied this ferocious grit, practicing 8-9 hours a day. He refused to accept the ceiling that the talent metrics had placed on him.
He found a way around the system.
He literally bypassed the SAT requirement for college by auditioning for an opera program, then switched to psychology and ended up at Yale. If you only look at talent, he's a failure. If you look at grit, he's a superstar.
Okay, so we've established that talent can be a distraction. But Duckworth, as a scientist, she doesn't just stop at work hard. She formalizes this. She has 2 equations that sort of explain the whole process.
And this is where it gets really clear. The first equation is talent times effort equals skill.
Okay, let's break that down. Talent times effort equals skill.
So talent, in her definition, is just how fast you get better when you try.
Right.
Maybe a natural picks up a guitar and learns a chord in 5 minutes. It takes me an hour. That's the talent difference. But if neither of us puts in the effort,
Talent times 0 is 0.
you have no skill. It's just unmet potential.
Got it. But having a skill isn't the same as actually achieving something with it.
And that's the second equation. Skill times effort equals achievement.
I love this because effort is in both equations.
Effort counts twice. If there's one thing to take away from the book, it's that. Effort builds skill, and then effort makes skill productive.
Can you give us an example, like the potter she mentions, Warren McKenzie?
Perfect example. Mackenzie was a master potter, so he had skill. But his achievement, his legacy, was that he made 40 or 50 pots every single day.
Every day.
He had that famous line, the first 10,000 are difficult.
So his talent might have helped him learn faster, that's equation one, but it was the sheer grit of making pots day after day for decades that filled museums. That's equation two.
Exactly. If he just knew how to make a pot but only made one a year, he'd just be a guy with a hobby. Effort is the multiplier.
It reminds me of that Will Smith quote about the treadmill.
Oh, yeah.
He says something like, "I've never seen myself as particularly talented. Where I excel is ridiculous, sickening work ethic."
Sickening work ethic. It's such a great phrase.
And then he says, "If we get on a treadmill together, there's two things. You're getting off first, or I'm going to die."
It sounds like an exaggeration, but there was this old Harvard study that literally did that.
That's treadmill tests.
Yeah, back in the 40s. They put these young guys on a treadmill at a steep incline and just ran them until they physically collapsed.
Which sounds completely unethical today.
Oh, totally. It was brutal. But it was measuring strength of will. And decades later, they found that the time on that treadmill was a better predictor of the men's long-term career success and psychological health than their actual physical fitness was.
Wow.
The ability to stay on when every part of your body is screaming, "Stop, that's grit."
But, and this is a real big but, you can stay on a treadmill forever, but if you're not going anywhere, what's the point?
That is the crucial distinction. Grit is not just suffering for its own sake. It has to be directed. It's passion plus perseverance.
And Duckworth says passion isn't like a firework. It's a compass.
Right. We have this idea that you just find your passion in some flash of insight. But for gritty people, it's about consistency over time. It's about having a top-level goal that organizes everything else.
That reporter, Jeff Gettleman from the New York Times, is a great example of this.
Yes. His compass was set early on. He wanted to work in East Africa. That was it. That was the top-level goal.
So journalism wasn't the goal itself.
No, journalism was the vehicle, the mid-level goal. He could have been an NGO worker, a photographer, and he tried those things. When they didn't pan out, he didn't abandon the top-level goal. He just looked for a different vehicle.
That's such a key distinction. He had what she calls a goal hierarchy.
Exactly. At the bottom, you have your daily to-do list, the low-level goals. They serve the mid-level goals, like get a promotion, and those serve the ultimate top-level goal, your life's compass.
The problem, and I feel like you see this everywhere, is what she calls positive fantasizing. People who love the idea of the top-level goal.
But they hate the low-level work.
Yes. Positive fantasizing is when you just imagine the end result, holding the trophy, whatever, because it feels good. You get the dopamine hit without the work.
And she found that people who do that actually have less energy to do the real work.
They've already enjoyed the reward in their head, so why bother getting on the treadmill? Real grit is loving that top-level goal so much that you're willing to endure all the mundane, boring stuff to get there.
And this is the really hard part, it means being willing to cut away everything else.
Which brings us to the Warren Buffett exercise.
Which, when I first read it, I just thought, this is impossible.
It is absolutely ruthless. The story is, Buffett tells his pilot to write down his top 25 career goals.
Okay, 25, a long list.
Then, he says, circle your top 5.
So now you've got your top 5 and the other 20.
And most of us would think, okay, I'll focus on the top 5 and the other 20 are my, side projects or things to get to later.
But Buffett says no.
He says the other 20 are now your avoid at all costs list. You have to actively run away from them. But why? They're still good goals. Things you want to do.
Because they're the most dangerous distractions. They are just interesting enough to steal your time and energy, but they aren't important enough to be one of your top 5. They are the enemies of greatness.
That's profound. We think the enemy of focus is like watching Netflix. But Buffett is saying the real enemy is other good ideas.
Exactly. Prioritization is about killing your darlings. It's painful. Duckworth says she had to do it herself, cutting side projects that were good, but that weren't serving her top-level goal of understanding achievement.
It's like you can't run on 5 different treadmills at once. You'll just go nowhere on all of them.
That's it. Grit is holding that same compass heading for a very, very long time.
So to bring this all together, we started with this myth of the genius, this magical being.
And we've seen that while talent is real, some people do learn faster. It's not your destiny. It's just the starting line.
And that math, effort counts twice. It's empowering. but it's also really demanding. It means you can never just coast.
It means the grittiest thing you do isn't the big flashy moment of victory. It's not the gold medal. The grittiest act is the boring Tuesday morning when you're tired and you've already failed and you still choose to get back on the treadmill.
Which brings us to our final thought for you, the listener. We just talked about that Buffett exercise.
I would really challenge you to actually try it. Write down those 25 goals. Find your top 5. But then take a very hard look at that other list
The avoid at all costs list.
and ask yourself, honestly, what are the good goals that are secretly sabotaging your great ones? What are the things you need to have the courage to stop doing today so that your effort can finally start to compound?
It's a scary question, but finding that answer might just be the difference between a life of potential and a life of achievement. Thanks for diving deep with us.